Folks, Sean here, and today I want to share with you the latest in the Reddit saga, which is a perfect example of what I've been trying to talk more about, that being how incredibly difficult it can be to monetize your B2B SaaS product or any type of software that had originally been given away for free. Now, the background here is that Reddit, which is a social media company that's become very popular over the years, it's one that I consume a lot of information from as well too, and I'll describe a little bit more about what it is if you're unfamiliar, but their CEO wants to push the company forward in achieving a couple of other financially related milestones, we'll call them. As in, the company itself has been talking about potentially going public and a number of other things. They want to be profitable. They currently are not. While they're generating a decent amount of revenue, they're still not profitable. And for the most part, lots of people gain access to the product itself, but largely for free. So the financial and economic model isn't really as healthy as it realistically should be if it were to be a proper business, which again, my opinion is speaks to profitability, right? Cash flow and profitability. So because of that, they've been proposing making some changes, namely charging for third-party access to their data. So all the data that happens in their communities, and that's really what Reddit is, it's a collection of sub-communities where groups of people that have particular interests can geek out about whatever that is. Business, sports, finance, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, there's pretty much a subreddit for it, which is very impressive. But the whole point here is that they're trying to figure out how to improve the economic and financial performance of the underlying business. And the proposal thus far is to charge people for their third-party access to their data. Now, why this created such a problem is because there's a very popular Reddit mobile phone application called Apollo, and they have come out and said, despite the fact that they've grown considerably and they have a lot of users using their application in order to access Reddit via that really important, channel, they're not going to be able to afford anywhere near what Reddit is proposing charging them for now access to that API and that data. So the community essentially has revolted. And the way that the story's played out thus far is they're like currently striking, if you will, and taking the communities, all those like sub-communities or subreddits, private, and locking out access and essentially kind of going dark for a period of time. I think they're proposing it to be about 2 days or something like that, which is going to lose Reddit considerable revenue. Now, it's yet to be seen kind of how this is going to play out from here, but the whole thing has created quite a bit of mess. I think the company is still staying true to what it wants to do, which who knows what that's going to turn into. It has the potential to kill the entire application, which would be super unfortunate for a whole lot of people. But there's a lot more on this topic. I'll let you do some of your own homework there too, or share some links around other sources out there on the web that are going into greater detail about what's going on here. But why I wanted to mention it and what I wanted to share with you is how this is the perfect example of how difficult it can be to try to charge at a later date for something that thus far has typically just been free. Reddit has always given access to this data to these third parties who have created great application experiences. They've built a lot of tech and business around having access to that. They were just assuming they were always going to have it, and now it's looking like they may not, which means that if they can't afford it, then that functionality, tech may go away. It could, again, it has the potential to kill the entire community. So the whole business could essentially potentially go under, right? I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I think it's probably unlikely, but it's possible. And this is an example where something that didn't start with an appropriate financial model or healthy economics now has created this massive problem, and they're trying to figure out a way out of it. That doesn't really seem to be a good way to do that. So again, I think that the lesson here is sooner rather than later, figure out an appropriate economic model, right? Assuming you're not trying to build a behemoth like Reddit has become, and even if you are, realistically, because there are lots of examples of companies out there like MailChimp who've never raised a dollar in VC funding, but instead are privately held and highly profitable and all that kind of stuff. That is entirely what anyone is capable of doing as well too. And in my opinion, a much, much more attractive approach. But regardless, the point there is to ensure that you are building software businesses, B2B SaaS products like proper businesses, right? If you can't make it profitable and economical on the earlier side of building it into a proper business, that's not likely to change further down the road. And it really doesn't for a lot of other companies out there. Some try this unicorn approach, and sometimes it works out depending on who you ask, but I've never really understood it. I can't make heads or tails of the economics, and I've been studying this kind of stuff, finance and economics, for a long time. So be careful what model you are leveraging, especially when you're getting started. And I'm going to strongly encourage you to focus closely on making sure you have proper fundamental economics and ultimately profitability, because that's what's required to turn your B2B SaaS into a proper business.